Hi, this is Denise Matthew, and welcome to episode 38 of the Mandala of Life, 365 Days to Self-Discovery. Today we're moving from abstract collective energy into tribal energy, away from committing to the right things for you and being in the flow of life and also all the experiences of your life, into the life force energy that talks about what we do so that we can survive as a human race. The Gate 59 is about bonding and making connections that are important for genetic continuity and to make bonds that are stable in a way that respects the archetype of exactly who we are. There can be sexuality here, intimacy, and breaking barriers of all kinds. Here is where we make connections to ensure that there are future generations to carry on our legacy. We're staying with the sacral center and moving away from abstract energy where it's all about the experiences of our life. Though both the Gate 29 and also the Gate 59 are connected to the sacral center, they're very different in how they operate. One is very tribal and the other is experiential and collective in nature. Tribal energy talks about all the things we need to do in a mundane world. Gate 59 is also a role gate where each line of a personality profile is connected to an archetype about how we bond as individuals. When we talk about genetic imperative, this is how we naturally want to connect with other people that will give us the best opportunity to have stable bonds so that we can have an ability to procreate and nurture new people into the world. Because without stable bonds, new generations would never come into existence. There's potential for fertility here too, but it can be applied to projects as much as it can be to procreation. But before we get into new content, let's quickly go over what we talked about in our last episode. In our last episode, we talked about the Gate 29 and how it's connected to life force energy. It's about making the commitments that are correct for you, and when you do, it puts you in the flow of your life. And when you're in the flow of your life, then you get more opportunities. But when you're not listening to what your body tells you and you're ignoring the signs that it says that it needs a rest or you need to not commit to some of the things you want to commit to, then that's when the body can start to show you that it needs to have a rest. And it can be magical in that, unlike the rest of people, when you have this energy, you have an ability to understand that when your health shifts, it's giving you a big message about your life path. When you're making the commitments that are specific to what you need to do to advance your life, then that's when you have good health, you get good luck, and things go well in your life. This is the most existential energy of the whole body graph. And if you want to find out more about the Gate 29, please check out episode 37 of the Mandala of Life. With that said, let's get into new content. A lot of times we talk about the Gate 59 and we do talk about sexuality and also intimacy. But in truth, the biggest theme of the Gate 59 is to break barriers. And here is where we have sacral power to break barriers so that we can communicate and connect with the people who are right for us. This is one of the three most intimate channels of the body graph. The other two are the 3740 and also the 1222. As much as it can connect lovers, it can connect friends as well. But the bottom line is that there is a deep need for connection and intimacy within this energy. This is half of the channel of mating or the channel of sexuality, and is considered a design focused on reproduction. This is one of the tribal role gates that speak to the archetype of how we bond. The other tribal role gate is the Gate 27, and that speaks to how we care and nurture. The way we bond and also the way we care is something that is innate, something that is born within us, and not something that we have to learn. It is always about the theme of support when we're talking about tribal energy, which means that when we're using our inner guidance or our strategy and authority, we're naturally hardwired to connect in a way that connects to our personality profile. Which means that today we're going to go through all the different lines of the energy of the Gate 59 to show the bonding strategy of each line and how it connects to our personality profile line. This is the fourth gate of the Quarter of Duality, where purpose is fulfilled through bonding. And please don't forget to check out the other episodes of the Mandala of Life. The 59-6 is part of the defense circuit, which are the two channels that connect the sacral to the spleen and also to the solar plexus. We have the 59-6 and also the 50-27. And just as you would expect, it is all about defense. It is all about taking care of our young and also making the bonds that we need so that we can have a stable relationship to have a family. The 59-6 is also considered an emotional energy, and is considered a tribal emotional channel, which speaks to the idea of your emotional wave being connected to the stability of a relationship. And the emotional wave within this energy can go up or down based on what's happening with your intimate connections, the people that matter the most to you. Although the emotional energy of the 59-6 is important, I'm not going to talk about it today because I did a whole video called The Energy of Emotion, where you can get more information about what it means to have this type of emotional energy. I'll leave the link below. The 59-6 is quite an interesting channel because, as I said, the 59 is a roll gate, and the gate 6 is an energy that talks to the emotional energy or the emotional wave we have coming out of the solar plexus, which is a topic that we'll get into later on when the gate 6 is being transited by the sun. This is also called the generated channel because if you have this channel defined, it automatically makes you a generator type. It's also one of the 7 creative channels in human design. Contained within this energy is the capacity to create life. And because this energy is so powerfully creative, it really does stand to reason that it's important to enter into any bonding experience in a way that you're using your strategy and in a way that it is best for you and also best for the stability of the new bond or relationship that you're trying to make happen. And one more thing to keep in mind is that the 59-6 channel is an aura busting channel, which means that people who have this energy naturally are noticed wherever they go. They sort of have an energetic that disrupts or connects, or you could even say breaks into other people's auras so that people notice you when you walk into a room. Now, it's not something that you're actually trying to do. It's just an energetic, and it just says that it is a powerful energy that gets noticed pretty much all the time. But since our focus today is the gate 59, let's talk about the hanging gate 59. I think in a lot of ways we could say that the energy of the gate 59 or the roles of the gate 59 and the strategies for bonding might be considered something that you could think about, a way to up the chances of having a bond that is more stable or a bond that actually works the best for you, because the whole point is to actually start from a place where you're going to have, you could say, the best opportunity to make a stable bond. One of the biggest places that a lot of us suffer, or we find that we have a lot of stumbling blocks or things don't go to plan, is in our relationships and also in our love bonds. It can even happen sometimes with friendships or even some work projects that we're working on with other people. The bottom line is that we want to break down barriers and that we want to have some connection and some intimacy within any relationship that we're having. And though this is considered something that is innate or something that we're kind of born with, this strategy, if we're not following our strategy and authority and actually living as ourselves and being our authentic expressions of who we are, then we may not always align with the actual strategy that is best for us. And as soon as we start to see the strategy that actually works for us, it's probably easier for us to kind of connect with what might work a little bit better than something else. And as soon as we have that intel or that ability to understand how our relationships can work potentially, then we have that ability to actually start to move towards that energy where we can actually get some stable connections and bonds, the things that we've always wanted to and maybe haven't been able to actually achieve. And since we know this is a roll gate, it also means that we don't actually have to have this energy of the gate 59 defined. Everybody has a role or a bonding strategy connected to their profile, personality profile energy, or the personality profile line. So in other words, if you are somebody who has a 2-4 profile, you will connect to the second line bonding strategy of the gate 59. You don't have to have the gate 59 defined. If you actually do have the gate 59 defined, if you're following your strategy and authority, your instinct will actually take over and your bonding strategy will show up. But most times your bonding strategy will be connected to your profile, your personality profile line. There might be some nuances of some energy of the other line. For instance, if you have the 59 line 1 and you also have a 4-6 profile, it would mean that you would need a bonding strategy where you're having a friendship before you move on to having something more sexually intimate. But also, you might actually decide that you want to find out more about the person that you're actually going to have an intimate relationship with. And by being a friend, it'll actually work out. So you're finding more out about them, or you're having some concept of exactly who they are before you feel open enough to actually search for some level of intimacy. So you're going to have a melding potentially of the energy of the gate that you have. And if you have the gate 59 defined in a few places, that's fine as well. Ultimately, your expression of who you are and how you're going to bond is instinctive. And that means that if you're following your strategy and authority, your natural way of bonding will come out. But basically, it would be probably more connected to your profile line than anything. And then the rest of it would be just kind of additions to the profile line energy. And if it works differently for you, you'll know, because if you're using your strategy and authority, it will naturally express exactly the way it is for you. With that said, let's go through the lines of the gate 59 and talk about the bonding strategies that connect to each particular line. So the bonding strategy that is connected to the profiles 1-3 and also 1-4 is called preemptive strike. It's very similar to the authoritarian energy of the foundational expression of the line 1 when we talk about a role gate of leadership, in that there's this idea that you are actually getting more information about the person that you want to have an intimate bond with. They may not necessarily know that you're interested in them intimately, but what you're doing is you're collecting information about who they are and building a foundation. This is a way to feel secure in your expression of openness with them. As with all first line energy, without the expression of some level of foundation, there could be an inability to actually feel that you really want to move forward to the next step, to actually open a conversation, or to try to have some level of an intimate bond with somebody. When you're feeling like you have the amount of information or the security that you need about the person, then that's when it's usually easier for you to understand exactly where you want to go and to actually try to open a conversation or to connect in a way that you are being intimate with each other. And just because you've built this foundation of information doesn't necessarily mean that the bond that you want to make is actually going to work out. It does mean, though, that you at least are starting with the best possible foundation that you feel more secure, and you can just be yourself and feel secure in your expression of who you are. But instead, if you try and rush without getting the foundation that you feel necessary, then that's when things may not exactly work out as you want it to, because you're not actually starting out with the footing that you need to feel secure in moving to the next step. When we get to the second line bonding strategy that's connected to the profiles 2-4 and also 2-5, this is called shyness. And just like every second line, there is some level of projection. And here's the projection that you are available or you want to bond. And all second lines are called out. And this is the same for this energy and this bonding strategy. So if you have this particular bonding strategy and you're going out and you're trying to make connections or make intimate bonds, it may not necessarily work for you as well as it would work for somebody else who that's their strategy. So this is about waiting for people to come to you and waiting for people to sort of break the barriers between you and them. And when they do, then that's usually the more correct person for you than somebody who you've actually decided that you're going to take the initiative and make some intimate connection with them instead of them trying to make an intimate connection with you. There's a powerful vortex of any second line energy that can draw people to you. And because of that, just waiting and allowing this to unfold the way it's meant to is usually going to work in your best interest. And the reality is that some second line energies get called out more than others. That's just the nature of being. We never really know how it's going to work for us, but being open and aware that that's the way your strategy has a potential to work can help you gain clarity on the way your bonding strategy works for you. When we get to the third line bonding strategy, we're talking about the connection to the profiles 3-5 and also 3-6. The nature of the third line is always going to be some level of experimentation or an adaptation to understand what works and what doesn't work. And that's how this energy can work, in that you are experimenting what it feels like to be intimate with another person. Every experiment that you do or every connection that you make is a way of understanding what works and what doesn't work. A lot of times people will say that this energy matures after the Uranus opposition, and so you find that person that actually you want to spend time with because you've had a lot of intimacy and you've decided what is something that you want to be with and what isn't. And that's that's why this energy is called openness, because you have an openness to understand that you are going to make a connection with somebody else and you're going to be part of a partnership, and you'll be able to understand what that means for you. Now, when we talk about this energy of the third line profile, there is this connection with a bond that is made and a bond that is broken. But as Ra Uru said, if we always focus on just the broken part and not the actual making of the bond part, then we can see that it's not just a negative connotation. This energy is about adaptation, experimentation, and a transformation of what it feels like to be in partnership. So we could even look at it as the perspective of a connection that comes together and then a connection that separates. A long distance relationship is something that could actually work with this type of energy, because there's a coming together and then there's a coming apart. Or relationships where somebody goes away and they work for some period of time and then they come back to the home. Those are all types of energies that can actually work within the third line energy. And it's not actually a break that is forever, but it's a break that is showing up in your trajectory and in your path of the relationship. That doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way, but there is potential for this energy to express it that way. Ultimately, the more you experience the connection with somebody else and the more you are being in a relationship and understanding what it looks like and how it feels, the more you understand what works for you and what doesn't, and the closer you get to finding exactly what is right for you. When we get to the fourth line bonding strategy, we're talking about the connection of the strategy for the profiles 4-6 and also 4-1. With all fourth lines, we talk about a circle of friends or a circle of people who are your friend group, especially when you have the fourth line, the opportunist. So in other words, all the opportunities that you get within your life come from the people who you know, the group of people who are your friends. This is where you get all your opportunities, including the ones for work, as well as the romantic opportunities. So what happens is you have a group of people that you know, and from this group is usually the place where you will find the people that will be somebody that you want to become intimate with, or somebody that you want to break the barriers and become something more than just friends. This is called the line of brotherhood and sisterhood because of that reason, because in some way you have a connection with somebody way before you decide to become intimate with them. And as I said, because it is an opportunist, or the line 4 is all about finding opportunities within your specific group, that's why finding romantic opportunities within your specific group is one of the factors as well. There's always this genetic imperative to have something more stable, more foundational, that comes from the energy of the fourth line. When we get to the bonding strategy of the fifth line, we're talking about the strategy that is connected to the profiles 5-1 and also 5-2. The fifth line is a universalization of all energy. So when we're talking about the fifth line, we're talking about the way the world sees the energy of this line. And the way the world sees the energy of the fifth line is that it sees it as love. In other words, love can break all barriers. There's a deep amount of projection on the energy of the fifth line as well, which means that there's a projection that you have a lot of love to give, and you might even have love to give, but it doesn't always mean that you have love to give to the people that are projecting that on you. And this is where we can have a disconnect with what you are actually offering and what people think that you are offering. The fifth line energy is a universalization of the energy of love and breaking barriers and being able to have a union, connection, or an intimacy. It is also called the energy of the femme fatale or the Casanova, which talks to the idea that on the shadow side is that we can use this projection of people thinking that we have love to give in a way that we are taking advantage of the projection and actually gaining access to rewards because of it. But when we see that the highest expression of this energy is that love breaks down all barriers and that there is this ability to have a universalization of love and intimacy, then we see that there is a lot of potential for this line. And though you may attract a lot of love from different people, Only those who are truly people who you actually want to have a relationship or an intimacy with are the ones that will matter to make a true bond and connection. When we get to the bonding strategy of the sixth line, we're talking about the strategy that is connected to the profile 6-2 and also 6-3. As soon as we get to the sixth line of energy, we know that this is where we have three distinct phases. We have 0 to the Saturn return, and that is when we're sort of experimenting. So in other words, when you have the sixth line theme, it means that you've had the third line theme. So you can check out what the third line theme energetically mean, especially if you are before your Saturn return. As we know, with any third line theme, we've had a lot of experimentation, and that's the same with experimentation with intimacy and connections. So that we know that when we get to the next stage, which is between the Saturn return and the Chiron return, it's where we are deciding and understanding exactly what we experimented with in the first stage of our lives. And because of that, we have this ability to connect with only the things that matter the most. In other words, we have this potential to have had a lot of different experiences, and from that, we're deciding that we only want the very best experience. We also understand that when we have a sixth line energy, it's talking about being a role model. And when we're talking about being a role model for intimacy, we're talking about soulmate energy. But before we can actually connect with a soulmate, or what people would consider somebody who is meant for them in this incarnation, we also have to understand that without self-love and a connection with the perfection of who we are and our individuality and our authenticity, finding love outside of ourselves is more difficult. And so it's imperative when we have a sixth line energy to get to a point where we are loving who we are and having an intimate connection with who we are. And when we do, then we can express ourselves in an intimate connection with other people. We can have a decision to make that we would like to have a connection in an intimate relationship with somebody who we feel is going to give us all the things that we want in this life. And when we think about this energy, it's called a one night stand. The one night stand comes from this idea that we have a lot of connections to decide what works and what doesn't work for us. And when we get to the sixth line energy, we're talking about this idea that we want to have an intimate connection or a bonding that will have all the things that we need to get to the other side of the whole tribal circuitry. In other words, we want to make sure that we'll not only have a connection with the right partner, but we'll also have the support for when we're rearing our children, if we're having children. We'll also have the support materially so that we can have what we need to survive and to have a good life. So all those things come into play when we're talking about the energy of the sixth line, where the soulmate connection comes with a caveat, and that is a connection that has all the ingredients that we want so that we can have a good life and a good relationship and a good intimate bond. And when we've learned our own personal intimacy and bonding strategy and how it works for us so that we can have the strongest and best relationships that are specifically based on exactly who we are, then the mandala of life turns again, and we move into the energy of the gate of aloneness, which is half of the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. This is tribal energy that talks about community, family, bargains, and being together. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back soon with episode 39, The Gate 40, The Gate of Deliverance. Until then, take care, and I'll see you again soon.